Dying dozens of times to a boss can be frustrating, but when it's behaving with the confines set by the game itself, it still feels like it's something you can overcome. What can be really frustrating, however, is coming up against bosses who pull the rug out from under you by breaking the rules of their own game, and end up pulling some cheap trick that can be described as little more than cheating. With those bosses, we know that nothing is off limits. In this feature, we'll be taking a look at 15 such bosses who, to varying extents, had to resort to cheating as they attempted to beat us. NINETAILS, OKAMI. NINETAILS already has a pretty formidable arsenal of moves that she can whip out during combat, from sprays of toxic liquid to deadly dark energy infused slash attacks, but most notable is her ability to use the Celestial Brush. Using the Celestial Brush, she can use 3 pretty dangerous moves, and what's even worse, she can use the brush while you're using it, or trying to at any rate. Omega Flowey, Undertale. Oh Flowey, you messed up microcosm of everything that is good about Undertale. The fight against Omega Flowey before it even kicks off in earnest can really mess with your head. From getting you to a screen where your playtime and the game's game appeared all messed up, to landing you in a dark void, to making you think your save file is corrupted, Flowey constantly pulls every cheap trick in the book to make you think there's something wrong with the game. Heart of Darkness, Darkest Dungeon. You know what's worse than one-hit kill attacks? One-hit kill attacks that force you to pick the party member who will be on their receiving end. Heart of Darkness, the final form of the final boss in Darkest Dungeon, is the meanest of the meanies, and can use an attack which instantly kills one of your party members, regardless of any stat. Cheater's Shadow, Persona 5. Delving deeper into mementos and tackling one of Persona 5's many side missions is no one's favorite thing, but it's worth remembering that there are some side missions in the game that are actually pretty cool. One particular mission has you going up against the shadow of an actual, literal cheater, a person who, with malice in their heart, cheats at video games like a scrub. In the boss fight that ensues, they try cheating once again, only for their attempts to fall flat anyway. Scarecrow, Batman Arkham Asylum. Scarecrow is far from a difficult boss fight in Arkham Asylum, and once you get down to actually facing off against him, getting through his horror obstacle course is pretty easy. But there's one particular moment in the game where, true to his nature, he completely messes with our heads, not just as Bruce Wayne, but us as the players. From the screen freezing up to the opening playing out with Joker and Batman's roles reversed, those really are a bizarre couple of minutes. BOWYER, Super Mario RPG. Super Mario RPG's boss fight against BOWYER is a prime example of breaking the fourth wall to completely mess with the players in the most imaginative way possible. How? Well, he has one cheeky little move that can completely ruin any offensive strategies you may have conjured up. He fires an arrow at one of 3 buttons shown on the screen, with each button corresponding to a button on your controller. Whichever button the arrow lands on is locked, which means you can no longer use it for anything until he moves again and fires at some other button. Yeah, try fighting a boss fight with that kind of restriction. LeChuck, Monkey Island 2 LeChuck's Revenge. Zombie pirate LeChuck, who's also your brother by the way, is no pushover, despite being a boss fight in a point-and-click game. Armed with a voodoo doll that he can use to transport you to different random rooms, he's actually a pretty tricky fight. Tasked with cobbling together a voodoo doll of your own, you have to look for the right parts and pieces in the rooms you find yourself in, and you have to do it all on a timer because LeChuck will keep popping in to teleport you to another different room. NITROUS OXIDE, Crash Team Racing. Essentially every boss in Crash Team Racing cheats, having access to a weapon each and then being able to use that weapon infinitely throughout the course of the entire race. NITROUS OXIDE, however, triples down on that cheap tactic, because he has access to all weapons from the previous bosses, and can use every single one of them non-stop. And he does, and it's really freaking annoying. Psycho Mantis, Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid as a series is no stranger to messing with the players' heads, but the most famous example of that is the boss fight against Psycho Mantis in the first game. Mantis not only breaks the fourth wall, he shatters it and melts down the pieces, messing with your controller, making it vibrate, and then reading every single one of your inputs. He could even make your screen go black to make you think that the game had stopped working. Iggy, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. Another boss who cheats in a Mario RPG, except here, even getting to the boss requires you to jump through some hoops. Read Circumvent Dirty Cheaty Tricks by Iggy. Right before the fight, Iggy spins around Mario and Luigi for like a couple of minutes, making them go all dizzy, which means they now need to walk over narrow bridges and get past fiery obstacles while in a dizzy state, which in gameplay terms means slower movement and inverted directions. Then when the boss fight begins, Iggy casts a spell that randomly swaps any two of your stats, which can either be very good or very bad. Your rival, Pokemon. The strengths and weaknesses of each type against the others is the name of the game in Pokemon, and yet this is the one area where our most bitter rival in nearly every Pokemon game gets the advantage over us. The game lets us go first and pick whichever Pokemon we want as our starter, which is all well and good, but only after we've picked our own starter does our rival go ahead and pick his own Pokemon, which is always of the type that's effective against your starter. You picked a Charmander? Well, tough luck because Blue is picking Squirtle now. ZINYAK, Saints Row 4. ZINYAK really won't stop at anything to come out victorious in his final fight against you. From jumping into a huge mech suit, to shooting bullets and missiles at you, to activating shields around himself, to summoning swarms of aliens into the room. Often, many of these at the same time. ZINYAK is willing to go to great lengths to stay in his position of power. So much so, in fact, that the protagonist flat out calls him out for being the cheater that he is. Eric Sparrow, Tony Hawk's Underground. Eric Sparrow. There aren't enough words in the English language to express just how much we all hate you. As if his annoying at best and appalling at worst antics throughout the game weren't enough, when you get down to accepting his challenge for a good old 1v1 skateboard race around the neighborhood, Eric decides to play it even dirtier. How? Well, for one, he's a pretty good skateboarder, we'll give him that, but more importantly, he's constantly throwing firebombs at you, which you have to dodge while you try and keep up with him. Baldur. Kratos is not a man one trifles with, at least no one with any sense would do that. But if someone does, they better have a few neat tricks up their sleeve. That's exactly what Baldur has when he comes knocking at Kratos' doorstep. Baldur constantly heals throughout his fight with Kratos, managing to stand back up even after taking the heaviest of beatings. It's a good thing Kratos has a lot of experience with killing things anyone else would have rage quit long ago. Chef Antoine, Dead Rising 2. Is there anything worse than a boss who keeps refilling his health? You're making all that progress, chipping away at the boss's health bar, only to see it all wiped away just like that. That is exactly what Chef Antoine did, and did a lot. Basically, anytime you are shooting at him from range, or anytime there's some distance between you and him, Antoine will lunge straight for the food to heal himself. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.